What I call two different types of situations when you might consider an FBA. Okay, I would really want to just break it down and go very simple with you. Okay, so the FBA language first appeared in the 1997 IDA amendments. Okay, the purpose of the FBA came about for discipline situations. Because in the old days, they used to exclude kids from public school education because they were uneducable, right? Untrainable. That's actually what the language said in the old Part P cases. So once that wasn't working, then they said, well, now they're being so disruptive that we can't provide them an education in this setting. And that's what they said. So this was a way to say, now we're going to include some enhanced protections before you remove kids primarily for behavioral and disciplinary problems. They modified it in 2004. But there's really two situations when you would consider doing an FBA. I call it the disciplinary situation, and then we have the learning impeding situation. The learning impeding situation is that check the box section on the IEP. Y'all know what I'm talking about? Does the behavior impede the student's learning or that of others? Do you ever have any issues with whether or not, do you ever have conversations or do you ever have issues whether or not to check the box? Is it always an easy decision? No. I mean, I've seen so many IEPs with kids with behavior problems where that box isn't checked, and I'm BD kids, and the box isn't checked. I'm like, I don't understand. He's a BB kid, you're sending him to a behavior school, but yet his behavior, you're not checking that box. And I don't necessarily know why that happens all the time. But I want to talk about the difference. Okay, with regard to the FBA and a BIP, whatever you want to call it, behavior support plan, behavior intervention plan, positive behavior support plan, in the disciplinary situation, it's very clear. I'm going to go through that language. An FBA is required if it's a manifestation of their disability, and also a BIP. Okay? This is where you see a lot of overlap with general education probably. You guys should be familiar, all BCBAs and BCBAs should be familiar with the Code of Student Conduct. Are you? Say yes. Say no, but I will be. You need to know that. It's very important. Okay? Because kids with IEPs can be disciplined under the General Education Code of Conduct regardless of whether they have an IEP. Up to 10 days, then some protections kick in. You really need to be familiar with that. Okay? I say it's a little bit less common than the check the box situation. Those tend to be more, kids exhibiting more severe, I call it lower frequency, higher intensity behaviors. Okay? And then on the learning impeding side, and we're going to go through both of these in a little bit more detail, there's really no clear requirement for an FBA. So when you check that box, the requirement is you put a positive behavior support plan in place. There is nothing requiring you to do an FBA. Now we're going to look at what Pennsylvania has to say, and I'm going to show you that. In Pennsylvania, you do need to do an FBA before you put a positive behavior support plan in place. We'll look at the language there. I think this is more common. A BIP is required. Okay, so there's really two different situations. People have written into the federal government and said, if we check that box, is an FBA required? And they say no. We're not going to require an FBA on a federal level. You know how it works, right? There's federal law, and then the states can give more protections at the state.